Welcome everyone to another episode of Beauty and the Greek. I am Stavros the Greek. This is
Laura the Beauty.
And today we're going to be talking about the beauty. Today we're going to be talking about Laura's forte, skincare. More specifically, simple skincare. We're going to talk it simple. We're not going to get complicated. Again, we're going to keep it simple for everyone to understand. Let's just jump right into it. Okay. So here we go. Skincare. What do you see? Let's talk about the negatives first. What are your biggest, with your clientele and over the 20 years you've been doing this, what is the biggest faux pas, the biggest problem you see when people come to you and they talk about skincare? What is some of the biggest problems you see?
I would say number one is misdiagnosed. So a lot of people will come in saying, oh, my skin is dry or it's, oily or whatnot. The only people that actually get their skin diagnosis right is acne. Everyone else,
that's because it's there.
Yeah,
it's
obviously, it's right there, right? But everyone else comes in and they think that their skin is something that it's really not. So in terms of dry versus dehydration, there is actually a difference because dry is lacking the oil, whereas dehydration is lacking the water. So you'll have a lot of people that come in and say, oh, my skin is dry. But I'm like, no, it's actually not lacking oil. Your skin is lacking water. So you're actually dehydrated. So, someone has given them, wrong advice, or they themselves have just, got onto Google or something like that and basically self-diagnose them, and it's completely off. So that kind of goes into a ripple effect of because now they were misdiagnosed or they thought that their skin was something that it's not, then they're doing their own research and getting wrong products that are not helping their skin whatsoever because they're not using things that or they think they're using something for an issue that they don't have.
True. And people, I'm sure you've seen it because I've had discussions too with other people, excuse me, and yourself, where people aren't afraid to spend money. They'll go and spend, what they think are the good high-end products. They'll go to the boutique or they'll go to a really high-end department store and get wrong information from, the people, working behind the desk or, trying to do an honest job. But let's be honest, they don't have the education that you do. They don't have the history or the pedigree. And they're selling them basically. They're directing them in a wrong way, let alone some people just go and just buy off the shelf anyways. Wrong products, like you said, right?
Yeah, I would also say a lot of times when you are shopping at a department store, you're wearing foundation. You're wearing makeup, you've got your concealer on, and it's very hard to actually assess the skin properly when you have these layers of makeup on your skin. Even I could be fooled with the way that you can, highlight, contour, and basically use your foundations. You can trick someone into thinking that your skin is flawless. Meanwhile, once you've washed away all that makeup, that's where we actually can see the true skin. So even going to something like a department store, the people could be very educated in skin, but because they're not actually wiping away the makeup, they can't actually see your true skin.
What's underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you see that too, where people will come to you and say, oh, what facial do I need? What skincare do I need? I want this and this and this. These are my goals. But unless you, like I said, remove those layers of cover up and masking, you won't know either what their skin truly needs in terms of, attaining the goals of what the client wants.
Yeah. And that's where, we go into more of a proper skin analysis and assessment where, my clients will come in and I will cleanse their skin and actually look under various lights to see, okay, you've got dehydration, you got excessive oil in these specific areas on your skin, you've got pigmentation coming up, you've got sensitivities, rosaceas, broken capillaries. So that's where a proper skin analysis is done, is that we're removing all that makeup, cleansing the skin, and then looking at the skin at various light settings so that we know how to properly get you to what goal you want for your skin.
No, true. What do you suggest in terms of night and day? I know the way you've got me with my skin. You've told me, what I require for the night, for the daytime, And I've always seen that, the stuff that you give me for nighttime is obviously a lot heavier, a lot richer. So yeah, what would you suggest for clients, people who don't know, or people listening to us right now? What would you suggest for them? Day and night, similar thing, a same thing for someone, or would you go completely different, like standard protocol? It has to be two different regimens.
Yeah, it depends on like the skin type that we're dealing with too, right?
Okay.
So I mean, it's very hard just because like to just throw out what you should and shouldn't be using type of thing without actually properly getting a skin assessment to know, okay, this is specifically what you need versus what I need. Like you and I, we can't use the same products because our skin is completely different. So that's why our cover is full of different products, you know. But I would say, basic, like for everyone in your cover should be a cleanser. So for example, you use the milk, I use a gel. They're both cleansers, but it's again,
my skin requires that, yours is requiring that.
Yeah. So, that would be, step number one is a basic cleanser to wash your face every single morning and every single night, A step number two would be some people need more of a toner while others need more of, a cellular water hydrating mist spray, right? So again, it varies from skin to skin, but again, this is just talking, basic for everyone, right?
Yeah, the
simple steps. Number three would be serum. You absolutely need to introduce a serum into your skincare routine. And serum is oftentimes neglected, which I really still don't understand why people tend to skip out on serum, because serum is, as I like to call it, the liquid gold of skincare. Serum has the most potent, high active ingredients in the skincare world. So that's where you're going to have, higher molecules of, whether we're dealing with hyaluronics or, you're dealing with acids like retinols or like salicylics or lactics or whatnot. The serum is what is going to be the one that is pure, raw, active form.
And that's the one that absorbs quickly into your skin, right? Wonderful. Yeah. And on top, after the serum, what do you suggest for our listeners?
Would be your moisturizer.
Simple.
Yeah, nice. Very simple. Like that would be your basic four. Then would
the moisturizer be the one that goes day versus night, for example? So you would obviously morning and evening, you would cleanse your face. You would, toner or the H2O spray or the cellular water spray that you said. The serum would be next. And then we would separate basically the daytime moisturizer versus the nighttime moisturizer?
It depends. So like for me, for example, I use the same moisturizer for day and for night. The only difference is that I actually will add an SPF on after for the daytime. So for me, I like to actually apply my sunscreen on after my moisturizer. I do not personally like creams that have an SPF built in, because then you specifically do need a day cream and a night cream. And then also I find the SPF is not as potent as an SPF on its own. I find that when it's mixed in your cream, it's a little bit diluted. And so for me personally, I like to separate it. So I like to have a specific moisturizer that is targeting, my fine lines, my pigmentation or some redness in the skin or extra oil or whatnot. And then after that, I will apply my specific SPF. And, I do change my sunscreens, from summer to winter as well, just because of obviously, dealing with, wintertime. If I'm not outdoors and I'm just spending it all inside, then I don't need, an SPF of a 50 like I do in the summertime.
Correct. But wintertime, you still suggest SPFs for people because of the blue light that emits off our mobile devices, our tablets, our laptops, people are behind them all the time, right? So you do suggest that, right?
Yeah, and SPF, you have to think of it, it's like a polish, like you're a big car guy, so think of it as like when you're polishing your car, that's what the SPF is for. The SPF is to basically keep everything sealed in so that you're protecting your skin not only from the UV rays but also pollution, the dust and the grime. You're putting this like polish, like this filter, so that nothing can kind of penetrate through it.
Gotcha. Well, good analogy. Yeah, very good analogy. Very good. And then the hydration too that we've discussed, I know on a previous podcast, people with the so-called dry skin, but you've said that their dry skin could be because of dehydration. That would also make sense that these people need more water on the inside, because skin would be one of the first areas where you see the dehydration occurring, correct?
Yeah, and dehydration in the skin too is like, if you had dehydrated skin and my skin was hydrated and we were the same age, even if we, like let's say even talking about like your siblings or whatever, but one person has, dehydrated skin, so and the other person doesn't. The person with the dehydrated skin actually will look older than the person with, hydrated skin. And that's just because dehydrated skin shows like every single little crevice that you could possibly imagine. So, that little fine line will now become magnified just because you're lacking that moisture in your skin.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? What else would you suggest that people do? I mean, those are the simple steps people can, I think the key that you've hit on is the assessment.
Yeah.
You could go down a wrong road, spend money, a lot of money, without getting the results that you're looking for. That could be discouraging. That could, irritate people's skin and make the skin even worse, right? Because of their self-assessment, or they were directed the wrong way. So anything else that you would suggest? What about in terms of, for example, products? What products would you direct from? I know traditionally the Europeans are very famous for their skincare lines. They do take care of their skin. Some of the oldest companies are from Europe, and obviously historically too. We know the ancient Greeks and even the Babylonians, Middle East, and the Persians, how they love to take care of their skin with natural products and their bodies and whatnot, and the milk baths, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a history of beauty and a history of skincare among the ancient civilizations. In terms of now, though, what do you suggest? Do the Europeans still lead the way internationally? I know it's a bit of a generic question, but what would you say?
Yeah, I would say for sure the Europeans are leading the way still. And I feel like for us here in North America, we do tend to look to Europe for like a lot of things. Not, I want to say everything, but a lot, like food, cars, skincare, fashion. Like, so Europe is definitely still like a leader, but I would also say even Korea in terms of skincare. The Koreans are starting to make, amazing, like they're the ones that came up with like LED technology, for example. So, I mean, we can't forget about the Koreans as well, in terms of putting, they're starting to put their stamp into the skincare world. But I strongly still love and use, and I feel like I will never not use European skincare. So I don't see North America right
at the same
there.
level.
Yeah,
that's fine. It's fair enough, right? In terms of skincare, you also talked about women, for example, wearing makeup and covering themselves up. Whatever, their fine lines, deeper wrinkles, rosacea, even pitted skin, whatever it is, whatever their whatever history their skin is holding. How nice is it? Or is it possible for these women to with proper skincare, and even more advanced skincare? We'll talk in a later discussion about lasers and more, microneedling and whatnot. Is it possible for these women to one day, like yourself and other ones of your client, walk around naked? And what I mean naked, I don't mean topless or with clothes wise. Walk around with their skin just completely nude and healthy, just with a serum and a skin and a cream on, in terms of just to show their natural, healthy beauty?
Yeah, it definitely is possible. I feel like when you're dealing though with different types of skins, you have someone like for acne, for example, you tend to be self-conscious. I had acne when I was younger, and I know the feeling of like, oh my gosh, like I can't leave my house because everyone's just going to stare at these pimples. Like I have to put makeup on to cover up. And that's definitely hard because you are self-conscious about your skin. But when you start actually treating, and I mean that's why I ended up getting into aesthetics altogether, is because I started treating my skin naturally and started to see that my skin was healing, from my inside and my outside treatments, and, the proper home care routine, and not picking my face and things like that, which we can discuss in another time. But, it is doable. You can actually get amazing skin and not have to rely on makeup. But it will be, for a lot of times, like, and even for myself starting off, it was baby steps. So, I would still wear my makeup, but I ended up, instead of wearing, actual liquid foundation and, my concealer, I ended up switching over to like powder as it was getting better. And then from the powder foundation, I switched over to like a tinted moisturizer and things. So there was gradual steps.
So you're weaning off the makeup and becoming more natural, more natural beauty. Okay, so that's it. But the thing, I think you hit a good point, is people got to start, right? I mean, if you're a young kid and you're starting to show signs of acne, okay, whether because of hormonal issues, whether because of, let's be honest, some of it is just simply poor nutrition and whatnot, okay, stress or whatnot. You start hiding behind it, meaning hiding behind it with layers of makeup or whatnot. It's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse and worse. And then you've seen, in more serious cases where the skin becomes pitted, et cetera, et cetera. And then more aggressive treatments are needed later on. Invasive treatments are needed later on to correct what could have been dealt with quite easily and quite quickly early on if people made that decision, right?
But I do find, in the world of, aesthetics, we have come such a long way from when you and I were growing up versus what we have to offer nowadays. So I do find that parents are starting to realize, hey, you know what, my kid has like 3 or 4 or 5 pimples, whatever, and they're starting to seek the help right away. So that's where it doesn't lead into acne scarring or, a full-fledged, cystic acne, because they're starting right away. And that's the key to that success, where you're not going to have to, use the aggressive, microneedlings and fractional treatments and whatnot later on, because you're starting to hit it right when you're starting to notice it, as opposed to waiting for it to get worse. Whereas, back in the day, it was, you have no other option. It was just, once your acne gets bad, this is the only thing that you have to take, and that's it, right? So I feel like we've definitely grown a lot in the aesthetic world, that
there's more options available.
Yeah, and people are more proactive, and that's where you're gonna be able to get that confidence and be able to walk around, like you said, naked with no makeup on your face, and have that confidence that your skin is your foundation. And I mean, that's the biggest compliment. Like, time and time again, I'll have clients that come in and they're like, what makeup are you wearing? And I'm like, I don't wear makeup, And to me, that's a huge compliment, because that is showing me and them that, like, I'm confident in my skin, and my skin is that foundation.
That's awesome. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we hide behind layers of clothes. We try to contour our bodies, contour our faces with artificial things, makeup or whatnot. And I think the whole beauty of, especially how I talked about before, the ancient cultures, how they loved the physique. They adored the physique, and you see it in, especially in the Greek, you see it in the sculptures, the way the sculpture had movement to it and flow, and just the natural beauty of symmetry. Beautiful physiques, fit, healthy, muscular, and they adored that. They loved that. It was seen as it was seen as sad or improper to have a youth that was, overweight and saggy or whatnot. They love the human body, and I think people have stopped loving themselves, even though society says love yourself, but there's this, I believe, falsity to it that it's just an idea, and yet people aren't truly loving and taking care of themselves, whether it's like we've talked about before, whether it's nutrition, whether it's giving your body sleep to rehabilitate and, heal the skin, whether it's a proper skincare regimen in order so that you can become, you will be beautiful. So, when your girlfriend calls you and says, let's hook up for a coffee in half an hour, you can quickly pop on a top or a pair of pants and you can be out in half an hour. You don't need to cover yourself up with a makeup or whatnot in order to fit that image, right? You're just naturally beautiful and you're confident in your body, confident in your skin. And I think that's what we're here to do, is to push people and to encourage people to take matters into their own hands and truly love yourself and respect yourself and see yourself become the best it can be in all aspects of life.
Yeah, and become that better version of yourself, right?
Truly,
so that is exactly, you nailed it right there.
So I think you talked about some really key points today, and a few other points I think which will lead us to another podcast in terms of the more scientific and the more advanced skincare treatments, for the more serious issues that are not dealt with at a younger or earlier stage in life or earlier stage in skin problems. And I think we will talk that in the near future. So yeah, if you like that or any other topics of interest that you may like, do send us a line, and we'll check them up. We'll research them, and for sure we'll be back to do another podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we wish you the best version of yourself. Ciao.